Greetings everyone to my 100th video on YouTube. Now, I wanted to go all out with, high-end video production and lots of great voiceovers and everything, but I don't have the time or money. So I'm just going to give you the vanilla version of my top 10 favorite RPG series of all time. Now, the first one that I want to mention at number 10, a lot of people might be shaking their heads at me for saying this isn't really an RPG series, and to be perfectly honest, it's not an RPG franchise. However, there is a few games that I think do warrant calling them RPGs to a certain extent. Some RPG elements in this series of games, or sub-series of games, has some areas where it's not much of an RPG, but in others it does. And for me, it's probably one of my favorites, and that is the action RPG Castlevania games for number 10. Of course, I am talking about Symphony of the Night, Circle of the Moon, Harmony of Dissonance, well, not so much Harmony of Dissonance, Aria of Sorrow, Dawn of Sorrow, Portrait of Ruin, and Order of Ecclesia. And I also want to mention Curse of Darkness. And if anyone tells you that Curse of Darkness sucks because it's a 3D Castlevania game, I want you to go out and punch that person in the face. Because Curse of Darkness is an awesome game and the best example of how you do the Symphony of the Night engine in 3D. The reason why I love these games so much is I've always been a big fan of open worlds, sandbox games, because most of the games I played growing up many of them weren't level by level by level. And I started off playing Castlevania with, I think it's Bloodlines in America, it's called the New Generation in Australia and Europe. And that's one of my favorite platformers on the Mega Drive. Absolutely love that game. It was one of the best introductions I could have to Castlevania. The second game I played was Symphony of the Night, and I was so amazed how they could incorporate a platforming game and add RPG elements just to make it so mind-blowing, such a memorable experience. I played the shit out of Symphony of the Night, and what's even more funny is I kind of dogged the game to begin with because I didn't get the true ending. I got the bad ending when I played it when I was about, I must have been 12. And then about a couple of years later when I got into high school, my friend told me about what I did wrong and told me the game wasn't finished. So I ran back to the video store and got like, oh my god, there's more to this game, and really enjoyed it. Then proceeded to play Circle of the Moon. Absolutely loved that. One of my favorite first games I played in the Game Boy Advance. I love the DSS card system. I just got addicted to collecting the cards in that game. Harmony of Dissonance it's a weird pair for me. Aria of Sorrow, though, that is such an amazing Castlevania story. I love the cast of characters. Dawn of Sorrow was one of the best sequels to a game ever. And I remember waiting months on months for that game, like obsessively waiting. Because I actually bought a Nintendo DS to play Dawn of Sorrow back in the day, and I kept going to my game store. It's like, is it in yet? Is it in yet? Oh, it's been pushed back. Is it in yet? Is it? I was just waiting, and as soon as I got it in my hands, I couldn't wait to get home. I had to pop and play on the bus, but the problem was the bus engines was too high. I couldn't hear Michiru Yamane's music, so I was like, I have to wait till I get home. And then got home, didn't get off it. I was just entranced. And then you've got Portrait of Ruin, which was their 20th anniversary game, and it was one of the best love letter games I ever played. It was such a great follow-up to Bloodlines, which was my first Castlevania game, so I really loved Portrait of Ruin. It meant a lot more to me than probably the average Castlevania fan. You know, it was more personal to me. Lastly was the Order of Ecclesia, and that's a very weird Castlevania game, but I liked it nevertheless. It felt a little bit disconnected from the other Castlevania games, but I liked it nevertheless. And I shouldn't have said lastly before because I want to mention Curse of Darkness a little bit more. Curse of Darkness is such an amazing game. It has an amazing story, amazing characters. I love the visuals. I love the soundtrack. It's a really good follow-up to Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse on the NES. That game just hits so many balls out of the park. And it's also got one of the best mini games, which I think is that Trial Tower, I keep forgetting the name of it. And you've also got the familiar system where you've got a pet monster that helps you out, and so engrossing. Absolutely love Castlevania Curse of Darkness. Like I said again, don't trust what other people say to you. If you find a copy of Curse of Darkness for either the PS2 or the Xbox, don't hesitate, go buy it. It's one of the best games you'll ever play. And that rounds off my love for Castlevania. Like I said, the franchise is not an RPG franchise throughout, but those particular games that was created by Igarashi, I think they are enough to warrant to call them an action RPG. So they're definitely number 10 on my list. Okay, number 9. And this series originated from the Game Boy Advance, and it's easily the first 2 games in this series is the best games on the Game Boy Advance. It's made by Camelot Software Planning. It's probably one of the best series that Nintendo ever invested in, and that is Golden Sun. I remember reading an article when Golden Sun was getting made, and at that time I was reading who was making it, and it was Camelot, the former creators of Shining Force. I was automatically on board without seeing the visuals or hearing any pieces of music. And then I saw the visuals of the game, and the graphics, you had to understand at the time, looked amazing for a handheld system. So I said to myself, these amazing visuals, it's a game by the old creators of Shining Force. I am definitely in, but I didn't have a Game Boy Advance. So for my 15th birthday, my parents asked me what do I want more than anything. Well, Game Boy Advance and a copy of Golden Sun. And I didn't think I was going to get it, but sure enough, I came home from high school. I was pretty down on my luck because I hated high school, and it was sitting there for me, and I just couldn't thank them enough for... That's probably one of the best birthdays I ever had, because I pretty much came home, thanked them for the wonderful gift, and then played the crap out of that game until the batteries dried out. And that began my never-ending saga of buying more batteries, more batteries, more batteries. And you can say to myself, why didn't you invest in those power packs? Because most of them suck and are not reliable. So, but getting back on track, the reason why I love Golden Sun is I love the world. I've always been a big fan of anything that describes the elements, fire, wind, water, earth, and anything that sort of experiments beyond the 4 elements. And I think Golden Sun is the quintessential game that sort of brings the idea of the elements to the forefront and tells them in the best way possible with the synergy and the powers of the adepts and just the different cultures that relate to the adepts and their powers. Just, it was such a great adventure, both games. And I will say this, as much as I didn't like Dark Dawn as much as those 2 games, I still really loved Dark Dawn nevertheless, and really enjoyed the entire series as a whole, and definitely one of my favorites. I gotta say, Motoi Sakuraba's soundtracks for all 3 games, amazing. A lot of people talk about his music for Tales and his music for Star Ocean, but I'm a big fan of his Camelot soundtracks, and Golden Sun is definitely one of the reasons. If you want to play a great looking RPG with a great story, great characters, and just great world, don't go any further than Golden Sun. Number 8. I was struggling to put this on my list, but one of the games that's a part of this series is definitely one of my all-time favorite RPGs, and I surprised myself with the fact that I replayed it again on the Vita not too long ago, even longer than the PS2 version. Of course, I am talking about Persona. I was going to mention the entire Shin Megami Tensei Gambit, but the truth is I haven't really been anything outside of Persona. I have played a lot of SMT games, but for some odd reason I have never been able to finish them. The first Shin Megami Tensei game, I came within 20% of beating the game, and did something really stupid and kind of threw me off the game entirely. Nocturne, I stopped pretty early. It was a great game, but I felt something else was calling. I could go on about what other games, and I do want to beat these other SMT games at another point. But on this list, I want to mention how much I love Persona 3 and Persona 4. I'm still playing through 1 and I need to get to 2 as soon as possible, but based on Persona 3 and Persona 4 alone, it's easily there at number 8 because the atmosphere of these games, especially in Persona 4. Persona 4 is a game that I keep saying has a great style. Whenever you watch a trailer, it's just got this great sense of style that just hits you in the face. And you're just like, wow, this game is funky and, you know, hip and all these wonderful things you just wouldn't say about a game, and just attracts you. And that initial attraction got me to buy a game, and I've never played a Shin Megami Tensei game in my life before Persona 4. And I popped it in, and it was a religious experience because I was kind of playing it in my old room, which is this kind of, I wouldn't say it's a shed, but it's sort of disconnected to the house. And when I was living there, in Australia, especially where I live, we had the worst rainy seasons ever. And it kind of helped the effect whenever I would have those scenes in the game with the Midnight Channel. It would be raining outside, and then the Midnight Channel would come on, and it'd be raining outside, and because it's this small little room not connected to the house, there's not really any way to get out there without getting totally drenched. So of course when I'm in there, I'm usually in there for the night, so I get super immersed because I couldn't hear the outside world, and it was just a surreal experience. And I grew attached to the characters and the, you know, the world of Persona with Persona 4 and the, you know, the town of Inaba and everyone who lives there. And well, after I beat Persona 4 on the PS2, I said to myself, that's easily one of the best games I ever played. When the Vita version came out, I didn't think I was going to power play it, but as soon as I picked it up, I just couldn't get away from it, and I spent about 30 more hours playing the Golden than I did the original version. And I mean, there's a lot to like about Persona 4, whether it's the dungeon system. I usually don't like it when you have a little bit of freedom in the games. Like, I like more traditional RPGs where you can go in and out of dungeon your own leisure if you're feeling the pinch. But with Persona, you have to stay there as it counts at that time period. If you leave, you forfeit that time. And to begin with, I didn't really like it, but as the game progressed, I loved it, and I couldn't see myself playing the game without it. And the time management system is something that in a lot of games it can go wrong and it can punish the player, but with Persona 4 and Persona 3 in general, it was probably perfected the most, and it felt more rewarding if you knew how to manage your time appropriately, whether you wanted to go into, you know, the TV, or you wanted to, you know, increase your rank with one of the friends, one of the different many characters that you could. And I got engrossed into every element in the game. In the first playthroughs, I always like to be the bookworm. I always like to max out intelligence first. That's why in the second playthrough I don't need to study and do all that jazz. I can be more sociable and all that jazz. So yes, definitely Persona 4 and Persona 3 as well. I remember passing on Persona 3 way back in the day, but after 4 I immediately went out there and bought 3. And I like 3. There's a lot to like about Persona 3, but I think I like the dungeon system of the TV a lot more than Tartarus in Persona 3. It's just a little bit repetitive, but I did love the characters and the environment of Persona 3. So I am most definitely looking forward to Persona Q, and most definitely looking forward to Persona 5.